Apparently, all week long, the Tennessee Conservative has been right over the target as we continue to receive tons of flack from rhinos and the corporate media, but we are used to it. And we're getting lots of love from folks like you who realize we need at least one conservative voice in Tennessee media covering the legislation closely. Your stories coming up are Trump Act, aimed at combating illegal immigration in Tennessee, filed for 2025. Taxpayer-funded lobbyist receives raise and fuels questions about conflict of interest. House Speaker Cameron Sexton yanks Todd Warner from education committees. I wonder why. Tennessee governor calls for special session. Old vouchers at the top of the list. Tennessee House rules and why Jody Barrett voted against them. Tennessee bill prohibiting fluoride in your water has been filed, and finally, a poll reveals that there is widespread concern about the undue influence of Big Pharma on Tennessee lawmakers. Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative. If it's your first time tuning in, you can follow us anywhere you get your podcasts. Do subscribe. Tennessee Conservative, we send this to you. If you don't know how to reach us on other platforms, if you've just found us, we are on Gab, Getter Truth, MeWe, and Rumble. But where you should really follow us for breaking news is X. Please go there and hit the follow button. And of course, if you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and you hit the subscribe button, we will send you an e-newsletter absolutely free Monday through Friday and our recap on Saturday, most of the time taking off the Lord's Day for rest. Now, while you're on that website, should you wish to go over there and hit the support button, that would be great. Our expenses are higher than they've really ever been this year because we have Adelia Kirchner at the Capitol, and we are also investing more money in reporting on stories because we know we need the coverage. We can only get to about 15% of the things we need to, but we're doing the best with what we have. If you would go, TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. First story. Trump Act aimed at combating illegal immigration filed for 2025. The first day of the legislative session, Representative Gino Bulso's highly anticipated Trump Act was officially filed for consideration. I'm here to tell you, so far, this is the most preventative bill I have seen for the session. It may be the best bill I've ever seen brought, period, on illegal immigration. And no one else in the state, I don't care what you hear, no one else in the state covers illegal immigration with more in-depth coverage, more regularly, and has been a stronger advocate for Tennesseans to close the borders of Tennessee, to make Tennessee less appealing to illegal aliens than old Brandon Lewis and the Tennessee Conservative. So Gino Bulso, hats off to you. This bill's clever acronym stands for Tennessee Reduction of Unlawful Migrant Placement Act, and it's also got the bill number HB 145, which is fitting, given that Trump was the 45th president. Now, this has gone through some modifications, but there are really three big areas that this bill seeks to address. Number one, just because you are physically in Tennessee does not mean you're a Tennessee citizen. If you are an illegal alien, you are not entitled to welfare benefits. You are not entitled to $700 million in taxpayer-funded education. You're not entitled to it at my and your expense. Number two, you cannot wire your money as you take Tennesseans' jobs back to your country of origin in Tennessee. And number three, it cuts off the money for public schools. These are big, huge issues. I cannot believe that someone would vote against this bill as this goes through committee. Honestly, if it were me, I know that Governor Lee has put illegal immigration somehow, some way, is going to be in this upcoming special session. Frankly, they ought to be pushing through the Trump Act during the special session. That's just my opinion. Next story. Taxpayer-funded lobbyist receives raise, fuels further conflict of interest questions. The City Council of East Ridge unanimously voted to continue their agreement with the legal and lobbyist firm Holland & Knight, wherein the contract includes a raise of over 40%, paying the firm $4,200 a month, or roughly $50,000, to represent the city's interest before the state legislature, which means it's a taxpayer-funded lobbyist. That means the taxpayers pay. Now, maybe it's in the taxpayers' best interest what they propose, but most of the time it isn't. And the firm employs Nicole Osborne Watson, the wife of Senator Bo Watson, which has raised significant questions about conflicts of interest over the years, and most recently on the House floor. It stinks that it takes a Democrat to say what we all know, and that is members of the House and the Senate in Tennessee should not have their wives and husbands up there lobbying when they sit on finance committees and they're very influential. There's a huge conflict of interest. There's no way to get around it. You can't go to a member's office and beg for something if you're the wife of the finance chair and not get a different reception than everybody else up there. Lobbying's bad enough as it is. It really needs to be reformed. But like, this is the stinkiest of the stinky. Okay, this needs to stop. Nicole has previously lobbied in favor of corporate welfare and on behalf of the town where she and her husband resides, while Bo's position on the Finance, Ways, and Means Committee ensures a strong voice, advocacy, and authority over much of the state's finances. Nicole's position could be viewed as unfair, and I think it should be. The firm brags about its accomplishments, securing billions of your money into state and local appropriations, making funding for football stadiums we really need. Hardworking Tennessee taxpayers that are paying sales tax on minimum wage to go fund sports arenas for millionaires and billionaires. We desperately need it, says Bo Watson and Nicole Watson. They also talk about getting all this money for solar farms. Yeah, they're real efficient. And incentives and tax breaks for large multinational companies. So you and me, little business owners, we get screwed, but we do get the luxury of funding these large corporations and often funding them to compete against yourself. H&K also gives high regard to diversity and inclusion, with the firm making note of their diversity council and the local diversity committee found in most of their offices. They even feature a video series focusing on gay advocacy, struggles, and inclusion. So it just stinks all the way around. Bo Watson can be a senator. There's nothing wrong with that. His wife can be a lobbyist. That's fine too. They don't need to do it in the same legislative body. Next story. House Speaker Cameron Sexton removes Representative Todd Warner from House Education Committee this week. The Tennessee House lawmakers received their official committee votes for the 114th General Assembly, and Todd was yanked from the Education Committee after serving on both for 4 years. Warner is instead being assigned to State and Local Government Committee, which is actually maybe a good thing. There are some bills that go through there, but it might be better to have him there. And this committee reassignment has been rumored to be a result of Todd Warner's outspoken opposition to educational vouchers. He spoke about it last year. He spoke about it this year. Apparently, if you share your opinions and if it's not what Sexton wants, he yanks you. You know, somebody said recently to me in a text message, a lawmaker says, we can't govern through fear. Seems to be about all I've seen the last 4 years. Everybody is so scared of McNally and Sexton. There's not an open conversation. It's top-down corporate push for whatever the governor is peddling, whether it be gun control, corporate welfare, or this very expensive, ridiculous voucher program. As I've mentioned to you before, I'm not going to rehash this. It's going to cost $25,000 plus to give away a $7,000 scholarship. We're bribing teachers. There's no accountability for the schools. It's remarkably expensive. I am all for some form of school choice, but it shouldn't cost more than the scholarship, and there shouldn't be all these strings attached, and we certainly don't want to put the Department of Education with any kind of control over private or Christian schools because they have so epically failed in the management of government schools already. You don't send someone with a failing track record to be the arbiter of other organizations because typically if they've got a failing track record, they will go to those organizations and ruin them. And I'm afraid that's what the Department of Education would do. Governor Lee and House leadership's goal this year is to pass the Educational Freedom Act. And it's something they're going to do and try to cram it through during a special session because they don't want the taxpayers and people to have 5 weeks to actually discuss the bill and know what's going on as it would go through regular order. No, they want to shove it right down our throats in a special session. It's Lee's calling card. Tennessee governor calls for special session that puts vouchers at the top. I'm not going to read all this, but here's basically the deal. I would call this the crap sandwich. Here's what a crap sandwich is politically. It's where you put one thing that's good, one thing that's bad, and you put one thing that's crappy in the middle. So what they're doing is they're trying to push hurricane relief, which should have been done forever ago in a special session. I don't know why we're doing it now. I think the only reason Lee is doing it now in a special session is because he wants to score political points. I think that's it. The other issue, which he knows that people care about, but has not done anything his entire term until now, which I don't even know if it's going to be much. It'll probably be ceremonial reporting, and after you've raped and killed and murdered somebody legislation, probably is what it's going to be, depending on the government at the federal level to do anything, the state not taking any proactive action. That would be my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. And then to put school vouchers in the middle. That's the crap sandwich, right? Good, crap, good. And there have been all kinds of rumors about lawmakers getting pressured by county mayors and all kinds of people because they're conflating all these issues in the special session. And they're worried, especially in Northeast Tennessee, that if they don't get behind Bill Lee's voucher bill, then they may get disproportionate funding. They may be left out. They may be punished somehow. And if you think the punishing is not going on, you're crazy. Look at the last election cycle where those pro-school choice groups went after conservative legislators because they had issues with a really crappy bill. And Bill Lee was orchestrating a lot of that himself. So I'm telling you, this is making me really want somebody new, and I hope we get a good person. We shall see. Guys, if you want us to continue to report and take the slings and arrows in your perspective, please go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. If you give $50 or more, we will send you a Proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler, a koozie, and a directory of your elected officials and a couple of bumper stickers just to say thanks from old BL and the staff that works way, way hard and gets paid way, way low because it's all we can afford to pay them. So do go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. If any of you have recently had a rich uncle die and you want to send us a larger check than $50, boy, we would take it. We will take bequests. We will figure out a way to sell a car, you name it. We need the funding. TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support. And of course, I appreciate all of you who send in donations and also words of encouragement and mailing things to us at P.O. Box 625, Signal Mountain, Tennessee 37377. That's P.O. Box 625, Signal Mountain, Tennessee 37377. That's all I got there. Now, before we get into this next story, I had a nice gentleman, I'm not going to say his name, Brad, you know who you are, calls me up out of the blue as all this stuff is going on and said, I just want to tell you that I appreciate what you're doing and hang in there, and can I pray for you? And I was like, I don't know that I've ever had anybody do that more than 5 or 6 times my entire life. And it meant a lot. I appreciate all of you who have made calls into Cameron Sexton's office trying to ask him to allow us to have access like all the liberal news outlets. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. It means a lot to me. Next story. Tennessee House rules and why Representative Jody Barrett voted against them. On Thursday morning, the Tennessee House Representatives adopted new rules. Representative Antonio Parkinson was the only Democrat lawmaker to vote in favor of these rules, and Jody Barrett was the only Republican to vote against them. I think you should be able to vote against things if you don't agree with them. In communication with the Tennessee Conservative, Barrett explained that he is a major supporter of Rule 83 regarding electronic voting and applauds the House leadership for making that step toward transparency. I cannot believe they did voice votes for as long as they did. I can't believe we had to yell for 4 years to get it gone, but I am so glad they're gone because now we don't have to worry about John Crawford and Gary Hicks killing bills and then acting as if people voted one way or the other. I mean, I have watched them kill bills that would have passed on voice vote because they were conservative and because they had some kind of corporate lobby or something pushing in the other direction. So now everybody on the committee is just on the record, and that's how it should be for Tennessee taxpayers. Members will now be recorded. Barrett noted that there was one thing the rules package had in it that he didn't like. It was a fundamental issue, and it's the issue that knocks the bills down from 15 to 12. And he said he feels it was not appropriate, and he was elected by the people, and this limits the people's voice. And so, good for you. You know, whenever I see the crowd going in the one direction, and then I see a few conservatives going in the other, it has typically been my experience that those few conservatives going in the opposite direction of the larger GOP group is far more aligned with your average GOP primary voter than leadership is. When you see a little schism of conservatives, it's almost always, not always, but almost always more in alignment with what the values are and the policy positions of average GOP primary voters, because when all your money comes from left-leaning corporations like leaderships does, I'm telling you, money is a corrupting influence for both good and bad. And it when you get all that money and you get addicted to it and you quit raising money back in your district, and those relationships and those skills atrophy, and now you're dependent upon those corporate donors and PACs to fund your campaign from now till eternity because you're too lazy to raise your own money from your constituents. Good luck being able to stand up. So, hats off to folks that take the path less traveled. Bill prohibiting fluoride in public water has been filed in Tennessee. Joey Hensley has filed a bill which would amend the law regarding Tennessee's standards for safe drinking water by making fluoride a prohibited substance. The bill would mark a significant change in Tennessee's water standards, as approximately 88% of residents served by community water systems receive fluoridated water. According to the Department of Health, this bill could become rather controversial as many community water suppliers and oversight bodies, including the Tennessee Department of Health, look to advice and recommendations from crappy agencies like the U.S. Department of Health, Human Services, the CDC. They did such a good job during COVID. They got it all right. They were the experts. We were the dummies. These are the people that folks look to for the direction, and that many Republican leaders looked to during the pandemic. They got no credibility anymore. The Surgeon General in Florida has also recommended against fluoridated water, citing possible neuropsychiatric risk, and pointed to several other U.S. municipalities and European countries who have banned fluoride from the water system. Last story. Poll reveals what everybody already knows, and that is many lawmakers are bought and paid for by Big Pharma. According to a recent poll, Tennesseans are incredibly concerned about the influence of pharmaceutical companies that wield too much power over Tennessee. Lawmakers, 70% of participants are incredibly concerned about it. 65% of respondents say that healthcare providers also have too much influence over state lawmakers. Imagine how much better our life would have been if one of two things had happened. If A, these groups had not had so much power during COVID, or B, if our leadership actually had guts and a brain and wouldn't have done all that stuff to us. When participants were asked who bears the most responsibility for the high cost of prescription medicines, 47% of respondents blame pharmaceutical companies and 28% blame the government. Well, heck, they're in bed together. Anytime the government gets involved in an industry and subsidizes it in any way or starts putting restrictions on it, it turns into garbage. You can see it in education. You can see it in transportation. You can see it in anything medical related. The government just gets in there and just mucks it all up, makes it more expensive. The costs go up, the quality go down. We know these things. It's like it happens in every vertical. 86% of respondents are also recorded believing that legislators should fully understand the cost to consumer for drugs and healthcare before passing new laws. Approximately 48% of poll recipients opposed the state legislature passing any laws that may restrict a business's options for designing their own healthcare plan. The concern expressed by Tennesseans who participated in this poll is by no means unwarranted. So, when you go back and look at the Follow the Money report we did, where all the palms are greased, and to whom the greasing is coming, it is from the largest group. It is the medical lobby. The medical lobby, the government and big medical in bed with one another. And it's what it is. It's why we have diminished care. It's why we have lower levels of client service. And it's why we have higher costs. Those are the stories. Guys, I appreciate you. This has been a long week for old BL. One of the longest in recent memory. I'm getting ready for my annual conference. I will not be here next week to do the Big 7. I'm getting ready for my annual conference, and it's just all I can do to put the tracks down in front of the train as the train is rolling. And then to have all this stuff happen where we're locked out of press conferences, locked out of the House floor, and having to fight and advocate for you, and getting all the slings and arrows from every media outlet that wants the Insiders Club to be the Insiders Club. And our leadership is just a lot more comfortable in a room full of liberal Democrats asking questions than they ever are going to be with conservatives, because they don't really care about what the liberal Democrats ask, because they know that their voters are conservative. But what they don't want is one conservative news outlet in there asking questions that would make them look bad to GOP primary voters, or that would answer questions that GOP primary voters have and show them in a light that's not as conservative as what they portray. And so I appreciate all of you hanging in there with me. It means a lot. We're going to continue to have to fund The Reporter, our annual fund, was pretty good, but it was not as good as what I'd hoped it would be, and I kind of anticipated that simply because of the election. The federal races really sucked a lot of money out of people's pocketbooks, and they're still recovering from that in their budgets. And so I appreciate all of you who support, and if you get a little bit of money in the kitty, please send it to us. We could use it. What's going on this weekend, guys? Well, here's what's going on. First off, tonight I'm going to put on the monkey suit, the suit and tie, and I'm going to go to a convivium celebration with my fraternity at UTC's campus, and I'm excited for that. I'm going to come back on Saturday, and I've got to work my keister off all day, and then go get the hairs cut, what few remain, off the mountain, and do a couple of other things before we go to church. And Sunday, it is my good friend Sean's birthday in Ringgold, Georgia. So we're going to go down there and celebrate the life of Mr. Bible. That's what's going on this weekend. Just trying to get it all done and trying to get through the next 2 or 3 weeks, as they are my busiest of the year in my other business, and the legislature is in session. So you can imagine, ye oldie phone just blows up all day long. It's hard to get it all done and not be distracted. If it were left up to me, guys, I would spend every waking moment working on the Tennessee Conservative. It's really where my heart is, but it wouldn't feed a family of paupers. It would not feed a family of paupers. And so I have to go do my work, just like you do your work and your jobs. And then I have to carve out the time and the money to do my civic engagement at no cost, rather no pay for me. And so lots of cost, but no pay. And so all of you who are grassroots leaders in your community, who run these patriot organizations, who run these conservative groups, who serve in GOP groups that actually care about the platform instead of power, all you folks that advocate for conservative issues and go up to the Capitol, who donate, who knock on doors, who make phone calls, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If it weren't for just a handful of us paying attention in Tennessee, I don't know what they do. We yell, scream, and holler all the time, and they barely listen. If we were silent, I think Tennessee would be in much worse shape. So don't give up. Keep putting your money in. Keep putting your time in. Keep showing up. Keep pushing forward, because I do think that there is a conservative wind blowing in Tennessee with Trump coming into office, and I hope we can seize the opportunity to change a lot of things that we've been fighting for together the last 4 years. Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative News. Love you, mean it, and I will see you week after next. Stay tuned. We'll have a fill-in host for the Big 7. I don't know who it'll be yet, but you're going to love it. Take care.